On the night of December 3rd, 1984, at approximately midnight, in Bhopal's train station Bhopal Junction, the station superintendent H.S. Burvi and the deputy station superintendent Ghulam Dastagir were on duty. Around 1 o'clock, the Gorakhpur-Bombay Express arrived at the station, prompting Dastagir to leave his cabin. Suddenly, he experienced burning eyes and a sore throat. Concerned, he searched for Burvi, his superior, to inform him about this, but couldn't find him. Moments later, he found Burvi lying on the ground. Dastagir tried to check whether he was breathing, but realized that Burvi had passed away. Dastagir immediately understood the cause. The thing is that a kilometer away from Bhopal Junction, in the Union Carbide factory, there had been a hazardous incident, releasing 50,000 pounds of poisonous gas, including MIC, hydrogen cyanide, and phosgene. The gases were spreading rapidly all over the city. As the most senior person present, Dastagir took charge, deciding that the Gorakhpur-bound train needed to leave before its scheduled departure. Even though it was supposed to stay at the station for 20 more minutes, the passengers of the train had the windows closed, and Dastagir didn't want the passengers to be harmed in any way. With passenger safety in mind, Dastagir broke protocol and ordered the station's staff to clear the way for an early departure, and he assumed all responsibilities of breaking this protocol. Meanwhile, the crowd at the station was growing. The incident occurred during the night, when most people were asleep at home. Some individuals, facing difficulty breathing, took refuge in their cars and tried to leave the city. But on the other hand, those without vehicles gathered at the station, unsure of what to do. More and more people kept coming to Bhopal Junction. People were coughing, crying, and vomiting all around the station. Dastagir was running from one platform to the other, trying to help the people in any way he could. He made an SOS call to the nearby stations, after which 4 ambulances, paramedics, and railway doctors reached the station to help. Despite all efforts, escaping the poisonous gas proved challenging. While on one hand, some had fled their homes to reach the station. On the other hand, more people headed to hospital. Obviously, if someone experiences burning eyes and breathing difficulties while sleeping at night, they'll go to a hospital. However, the challenge was that neither the railway doctors nor the hospital staff understood the nature of the situation. These symptoms were unfamiliar to them, and they struggled to identify the illness or its cause. 3 kilometers from the Union Carbide factory was Bhopal's Hamidia Hospital. At the time, the hospital had a capacity of approximately 1,200 beds. Around 1:15 a.m., the first patient arrived, complaining of eye irritation. Within the next 5 minutes, over 1,000 people had gathered at the hospital. Some doctors attempted to obtain information from the Union Carbide factory, but they didn't provide any useful information. The company's medical officer, L.D. Loya, told the doctors that the gas was not poisonous and advised the application of wet bandages to the eyes. Meanwhile, the superintendent of police, Swaraj Puri, visited the control room and saw that his staff was coughing helplessly and rubbing their eyes. That was around 1:25 a.m. He called the Carbide factory. On the first 2 phone calls, he received assurances of everything being okay. However, after the third call, the response was uncertain. People at the factory claimed that they didn't know what had happened. "We don't know what has happened." By 2:10 a.m., the hospital had admitted around 4,000 patients, and chaos was unfolding at Bhopal Junction station. Dastagir had ensured that the Gorakhpur-Bombay Express had left the station, but aiding people became increasingly challenging. He later learned that his senior, H.S. Burvi, had lost his life while directing another train to leave Bhopal. His senior had instructed the train not to stop at the platform and to keep moving. Ghulam Dastagir, his wife, and their 4 children lived in Old Bhopal, merely 3 kilometers from the Union Carbide factory. But Dastagir didn't leave the station to check on his family. He remained at the station, dedicated to assisting those in need. Trains arriving at the station were prevented from stopping. They were asked to keep going. Manzoor Ahmed Khan, Dastagir's colleague, was among the individuals arriving at the station to leave Bhopal. Around 3 a.m., he arrived at the station with their entire family, observing Dastagir tirelessly moving from platform to platform, assisting people selflessly, without concern for his own safety or that of his family. On one hand, the doctors and paramedics at the stations and hospitals were working tirelessly to save lives. On the other hand, they didn't truly know how to treat the cause of the symptoms. Most of the doctors administered eye drops to reduce the burning sensation in the eyes, steroids to treat the inflammation, antibiotics to prevent secondary infection, and antacids to treat stomach problems. The real solution, though, depended on identifying the gas, whether it was MIC, phosgene, or another gas like hydrogen cyanide. Initially, doctors suspected phosgene poisoning because there was a similar incident 3 years prior to this in the same Union Carbide factory in December 1981, resulting in the death of a person working in this factory, Ashraf Muhammad Khan, due to a phosgene leak. No one knew that at the time of this incident in the factory's temperature was around 400 degrees Celsius. Meanwhile, in America, Carbide's medical director, Bipin Awasya, informed Bhopal authorities that if cyanide poisoning was suspected, sodium thiosulfate should be administered as an antidote. In earlier experiments, but Bipin Awasya retracted his statement 10 days later during a press conference in Bhopal, asserting that there was no cyanide poisoning, rendering the antidote useless. The company issued a statement clarifying that MIC is not cyanide and that the two should not be confused. However, this clarification from the company was very late. By then, numerous patients were in the hospital awaiting treatment. To help the distressed patients, on December 8th, German toxicologist Max Donderer arrived in Bhopal with 50,000 doses of sodium thiosulfate. When doctors used sodium thiosulfate, it proved quite successful, with many patients recovering. Unfortunately, one patient died after its administration. This led to widespread rumors that a German doctor had killed a patient with sodium thiosulfate. Consequently, the doctor and his antidotes were sent back. First, because when sodium thiosulfate was being administered to some patients, positive effects were observed. And second, he reiterated that sodium thiosulfate should be used. Weeks later, in February, ICMR instructed doctors to use sodium thiosulfate. The biggest question here was, why was there so much confusion? The company that owned the factory, why did they create so much confusion about MIC and cyanide? The direct answer is, the company was in the midst of a huge compensation claim. It wanted to minimize the side effects of MIC to save money. Ghulam Dastagir, the person I talked about at the beginning of this video, managed to save himself, but the last 19 years of his life were mostly spent in the hospital. He passed away in 2003.